Hello, good afternoon.
Well, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
All right, so I want us to look at troubleshooting computers. So what happens if we are running some apps or our computers start to misbehave? How do we troubleshoot them? So let's look at objectives. So after today's class, we should be able to describe the typical software problems, or we should be able to identify them when they occur, use troubleshooting tools that is being provided by the operating system to be able to solve some of these issues. Then get help online. So sometimes if you're having problems with your computers or your laptops, phones, you can get help online. So we'll look at some of the online resources that you can get help from. Then we'll describe some symptoms of problems that are associated with hardware component. So if there are some issues that happen with our hardware, we should be able to identify that this is a hardware problem and not a software issue. Then we should be able to identify common solutions to problems that comes with our peripheral devices. Sometimes you could realize that the issues are not with the system unit, but rather with the devices that we connected to the computer system. So these are the objectives. Keywords to note here are knowledge base, online forums, power search, problem report, quarantine, save mode, spy definition, system restore, threat, troubleshooting, and virus definition. So these are the keywords that we should know. So the key term that we want to know for today is known as troubleshooting. So when we talk of troubleshooting, it means that we are taking a logical, systematic approach problem or the cause of the problem, and then we apply a solution so that our computer will be working normally again. So when you hear of troubleshooting, all that we are trying to talk about is how we can be able to identify what is actually the cause of the problem that we are having, and then how we can be able to bring our computer back to the original state that it was before we encounter the problems. So there are 4 steps of troubleshooting that you normally go through. So anytime that there's a problem or you want to go through troubleshooting, know that you are going to go through some 4 steps. So the first one is define the problem. You can't solve anything if you don't know the problem. So the first thing that you need to do is to identify the problem. And you identifying the problem is trying to describe the trouble that you are having. It's just normal. Even if you go to a hospital, the doctor will ask you what's your issue. So you have to tell the doctor what is wrong with you. Through that definition of your problem, the doctor will be able to solve the problem for you. So when you are using troubleshooting software tool or tools, sometimes you need to describe the problem. For example, when you're using online forums, sometimes you need to describe the problem that you are having so that colleagues that are online can be able to help you to be able to solve the problem that you have. So the first thing is you getting a definite definition of the problem. So know that the problem, the application, other than your app running at that time and any task that the computer might have been running in the background. So you describe exactly what is happening. So maybe you launch Word and then you realize that you're having issue with that particular word. So you need to be explicit on the kind of problem that you have. Then the second step is identify the possible cause. So you consider obvious cases first. So sometimes you are trying to do your own troubleshooting. So once you know that this is the issue, what are some of the likely cause of this problem being happening in your computer system? So you need to identify the possible causes. So some of the possible cases can be that a file being damaged. Sometimes, I think sometimes we spoke about some viruses, and some viruses all that they do is to attack your executable file. So if you are running and then you launch your Word and then you realize that Word is no more running properly, then it could be that either the file is damaged. So you look at possible case scenario or cases that can happen that will result into your problem being solved. Then the next thing too is that determine the last time you successfully performed the same steps with the software. So what are the steps that the software, or maybe some time ago, you realized that you were working with your system and then that error happened. So if that happened, you were able to take some steps that was able to help you to be able to solve that particular problem. So try as much as possible to see whether is it the same issue that has happened again? And then if that's the case, what did you do with the previous time that the problem happened? So sometimes you could realize that we've installed a software, and then after installing a software, then a particular software refuses to work. So it could be that the software that you have installed is having some kind of compatibility issues with the system that you are trying to run or the app that you are trying to run. So if that is the case, then the best thing for you to do is either you uninstall that particular software. There are some software that consume so much memory. So you could see that once you install that particular app and then you begin to run that app, it's going to slow down your system. So if that is the situation that you are having, then the best thing for you to do is to uninstall that particular software that you have so that the problem will be solved. Then the third step that you need to do is to determine the most likely cause. So walk through the process of elimination to determine the most likely case. So in this case, you are doing try and error. So you try all possible causes to see whether will this problem that I'm having with this particular software, will it be solved if I use this step? So you are testing all scenarios to see whether that one that you are the steps or the cases that you've done, is he able to eliminate the problem that you are having? If it does, then that means that you are lucky, you solve the problem. But if it is not, then you are going to go through most likely causes that are going to happen to the software that you are running. Then once you do that, then you apply the solution. So as you test the causes, keep track of the possible solutions. So what some people do is that they keep track of the problems that they have. I once worked with one IT guy, and then he said that anytime people bring a problem to him, he states the problem and then the solution. So subsequently, if somebody comes again with the same problem, all that he will do is to refer to that particular book or notebook where he jot all those things down, and then he will be able to solve the problem. So the same thing you must also do to try to troubleshoot your system. So these are the 4 steps that you need to go through when you are troubleshooting any problem that you have with your software. So when you define the problem in step 1, you determine whether you are trying to solve a problem with a software or a hardware. So the first thing is your problem definition. So it could be that you've plugged in or you've installed a hardware and the hardware is not working. So in this case, when you define that problem, either it is with a software or it is a hardware issue. So sometimes it could be that the hardware that you are trying to install on your computer system is faulty, or it could be that the drivers are not compatible with your operating system. So you define your problems, and then through the problem definition during your troubleshooting stage, you try to see whether is it a hardware issue or is it a software issue. So if the problem involves an application other than your operating system, then you have to troubleshoot that particular software. So it is that maybe you've installed, but you realize that it is not an OS issue, but rather it is the application that you have installed. If it is that application that you've installed, then there is troubleshooting that you can do. So most of this troubleshooting, it involves you trying to go online or to the website of the software that you have installed. And then there will be some stages that you can go and then do all those troubleshooting. So sometimes you get help from online resources. So the best place that you can find your troubleshooting information will be on the web. And then sometimes the software or the applications that we installed, most of them are from a software vendor. So those software vendors, they give us a site where we download. Either it is a freeware or you pay for it. So whatever version of the software you are using, there will be a website that you can go in, you log in into that particular a website, and then they provide an online resources that you can use to be able to solve your issues. So the best resources are knowledge bases and online forums. So sometimes some software developers, they create an article or video containing information about the product. So all those ones come together to form what we refer to as a knowledge base. So most developers or hardware manufacturers provide these knowledge bases to their users through the online resources that can help you to be able to solve your problems. So either you are using a software or a hardware, the best place to go in troubleshooting is to query the knowledge base of your software or the hardware that you've installed, and then you can be able to have some likely possible causes. Sometimes when you buy the software and then it's a hard copy that's given to you, you could see that on the manual, you could see that there are some troubleshooting guidelines that is there. So those are the knowledge base that we are talking about, where there are likely causes that you can find. Mostly when you buy TV, some of these electronics, you realize that some of these comes with some manual that you can use to be able to troubleshoot your system if there's any problem with it. So those ones is what we refer to as the knowledge base. Then there's an online forum. So it's just a website where people conduct conversation by posting messages about some specific topics. 1 minute. So an online forum is just a collection of people who have the same problem. Just like in Ghana here, you see that when some people go to hospital, they're having some specific ailment, they go and then they form some WhatsApp group where they post topic about that particular illness that they have. So the same thing also happens when you come to computers or when you are troubleshooting. So you realize that the same problem you are having, somebody is also having the same thing. So the person posts it on the forum, and then there's a lot of discussion about it. So I've installed this software and I realized that my webcam is no more working. So how can I go about it? So a lot of people will post how they were able to resolve those issues. And then you can also just look at it and then go and then have your issue resolved. So users post questions or report problems that they are having with that particular product. Normally, there are some hardware manufacturers or even software developers. They create this kind of online forum where people go and then have these discussions. So you could see that the original messages and responses that people post, maybe somebody have posted this thing about 12 years ago. So when you also post similar issue, they will give you something known as a thread. So this thread is just all those responses to the original messages that people have responded to. They put all of them together, and that is known as the thread. So maybe I'm having issue with my webcam. So there's a thread that is having issue or that has solved problems with the webcam. Somebody is having issue with, let's say, screen resolution. So there's a thread of emails or conversations that have issues with those particular ones. So you look for that particular thread, and then you have all those discussions that have gone on with that particular problem solved. So one issue or one area that you can get help from when you are troubleshooting is an online forum. Sometimes some of these things just require you entering your email and then you join the online forum discussion. So you make use of the online forums when you have issue with anything about your computer. Just go there and then post your issue. Somebody will refer you to a particular thread and then you go there, read everything. If it is the same as your problem, then read. People might say, okay, I also encountered the same problem some time ago, and then I used step A, B, C, D, and then I have resolved my issue. So you can also do the same thing. And if yours also work, you go back and then post that, okay, this also worked for me. I've used this version of Windows, face similar problem, follow the same thread, and I'm able to solve it so that you can also contribute to the forum discussion that people can go in and have issues solved. So most of the software developers, as we said, they have or they've created some of these online discussions. So if you look at these ones here, this is the Microsoft community where they have an online discussion pertaining to problems that they have. And then these are the various threads that they've created. So even you can even go there and then use a filter to just get an issue on a particular topic, and then the thread of those topics will come. So for example, you can say that if you're having issue, file history will not start. So these are the threads. So you can see 92 views. The question that was posted by this person in 2017, July 10. And then there were a lot of replies. So 5 replies that was made to that particular thread. So over here, you can see download Windows 8.3 ISO. So 1,207 views, 36 replies. So these threads are very, very, very important for you if you want to use the online resources. So over here, this is where you post your question. So maybe you are having issue with maybe your drivers, maybe your printer is not able to print. So you just come here and then type in printer will not print. Then there will be a thread of emails or a thread of messages that will come, and then you go there and then have your issue solved. So this table now shows some of the common software problems, the possible causes of them, and then how we can be able to solve them. So the first problem we have is operating system does not start or start and then freezes. So you could realize that you boot. There are some people immediately they start their machine, it doesn't even come at all. Or when it comes, it starts and then freezes. So what are the possible causes? Necessary file fails to load. So sometimes it could be that there are some files that are needed to be able to start your system. They are not being able to load. So if that's the case, that might be the problem why your operating system is not starting, or background processes start before operating system starts completely. So there are some processes that run at the background. Those processes are also needed for the system to function very well. So it could be that when you are booting up, this background processes starts before your operating system fully loads. Normally, your operating system needs to fully load, after which the background processes will be loaded. So if it happens that yours is the other way around, then the possible solution that you can do is to restart the computer, or you update your operating system. So if you restart and the system still behaves the same way as it is, then the best thing for you to do is to go and then update your operating system. Sometimes another problem is newly installed software does not start. You have installed the software, but when you are trying to run it, it doesn't run. So the possible causes could be the file is corrupted, or there's a missing software files. This usually happens if you are using a cracked version of the software. So if that is what happened, then the solution will be that uninstall and then reinstall the software. Or you get a trusted source and then you download that particular software, and then everything will be done. Another problem, newly installed software starts but does not run correctly. So if that is the problem you are experiencing, then the possible cause will be operating system might not be aware of the changes in the system settings. So you have installed, but the software that you've installed, the operating system did not make changes to it. So if that's the case, then the best way to solve this is restart the computer and then you restart the software. So you restart your operating system, that's restarting your computer system. Then after that, you restart the software. If that happens again, then you need to uninstall and then install the software back, and then everything will be fine. Other software does not start or runs with error. So if that's the case, then that means that there's some software bug or conflict with other software. So there are some softwares that you installed and then they'll be conflicting. So if that's the case, then you need to check the publisher's website for an update or setting change that can solve the problem. Otherwise, uninstall one of the programs that are in conflict. So there are some programs that conflict with each other. So if you realize that other software does not start, then it could be that there's a bad, either you have a bad or they are conflicting with some software. So if it is that the issue, then you need to uninstall those software that are conflicting with each other. So you can also troubleshooting using tools. So the operating system that we have, sometimes we say that the operating system, they are the supervisors of the computer system. So they come with a diagnostic tool that can help you to be able to solve some of the issues that you have with your software. Even if you have an issue with the operating system itself, it has this diagnostic tool that you can use. So in Windows, you troubleshoot most of this thing through your task manager. So you go to the task manager, and then with the action center, which is in the control panel, it helps you to be able to manage your system security, and then the maintenance issue settings are also there. So the best place that you can go and have your system troubleshoot with Windows is to go into your task manager. So you use the task manager, and this task manager helps to track the system resources, how the system resources are being used. So when we talk of system resources here, we mean the CPU, the memory, and then other system resources, and then the applications, how much of this system resources that they are using. The most important system resource within your computer system is the CPU and the memory. So you could see that you install some systems and you install some applications, and some applications are making so much use of your memory, or they are making so much use of the CPU time. If that is the case, then you can use your task manager, and then you try to either kill those processes, or if they are not so much important for you, then you need to go and then uninstall those particular problems or software. So you use this information that the system resource, the task manager is going to give you to be able to troubleshoot some of this. So let's say that you are running 6 applications at the same time. So as you are running these 6 applications, so let's say that you edit and format text in Word, then you realize that the changes that you are trying to do to them, they are so slow. So in that case, what could be the problem? You can go into your task manager, and then you see how those system resources are being used. So an example is this. You could see that we have 6 applications that are currently being run. We have Internet Explorer, we are running Excel, PowerPoint, Microsoft Word, Task Manager, and then the Windows Explorer. We open all the systems down at the same time. Then we realize that when I'm in Word, when I want to save something, it takes time before the system or before the Word will respond. So you are doubting, why is it running so slow? So you can come into your task manager, and then your task manager will tell you how the system resources are being used. So when you log it, you get this tab, which is the processes. So program that is currently being run is known as a process. So you see that among the 6 running processes, Internet Explorer is using 90.56 megabytes of your system resources. So you look through all of them. Then you could see that in total, when you add all of these things, in total, we have 96% of our memory being used. This 96% of memory, Internet Explorer alone is using 90.5 of it. So this tells you that the Internet Explorer that you are currently running is consuming so much memory. So in this case, it is the one that is causing your Word to respond so slow. So if the application or whatever you are doing, the Internet Explorer is not so important at that material moment, then the best thing to do is to kill that process so that more memory can be made available for your Word to be able to use. So sometimes if you are running a system and your system is slow, come to your task manager and then you have your system resources. You check to see which of the apps are making use of system resources. So over here you can see even the CPU usage. You could see that it's only they are just using 1% of the CPU time. So you could see that the CPU is not even being utilized just because your Internet Explorer is making use of a lot of memory space in them. To get your task manager, when you are using Windows, you press Alt-Control-Delete, and then your task manager will be summoned for you to see how your system resources are being used. Then you can use the reporting tools. So operating system keep track of the software errors. As we said, the operating system is like the master controller of all system resources, all the hardware components that you have. So any error that happens, it is being logged. It's just like a security person at the post. Anything that happens within an organization, the security man is supposed to log it. So whenever there's any error that happens within your system, the operating system is supposed to keep track of some of these errors in the system. So these ones are being stored in the system folder. So anytime that there's any issue, your Windows or your operating system just go into that particular dialog box and then try to see whether is there any problem that has ever happened before. So usually a problem report will be generated. So a problem report is just a copy of the error data, which usually include the details about the problem, when that error occurred, and then the technical information about the state of the system at the time that that error has happened. So all of these things will be kept in the system folder by the operating system. So usually, this is how everything happens. So using your system reporting tools, so Windows checks for the solution when that application fails. So let's say that you are having an application running, and then all of a sudden the problems happen. So when that happens, you see that your operating system usually uses the reporting tools and then generate a report. And then once that report is generated, it goes into the system folder to see what are the errors that happen. And then if that error happens, how can I best solve this? Then it goes onto the website or the Microsoft website to see what are some of the issues that other people have reported, and then how were we able to solve it. Then if a solution is found, it will ask you that, okay, this is the solution. Either you download a file to be able to repair that particular software, or it asks you to do an update to your system. And then once you do an update, your problem will be solved. So over here, you could see that when that error happened, the operating system first check the system log and then realize, okay, fine, this error was once encountered. So how did I solve it? It went online and then check. So once that happens, it gives you how best you can be able to solve that problem by listing some of the issues here at the Action Center. So from here, you can be able to solve some of the problems that happen, or some of them that has earlier happened, and then how you were able to solve them. Sometimes you can use automated troubleshooters. So there are some software and hardware problems that you have that operating system will offer you these automated troubleshooters. Usually these are just a dialog boxes or wizard that helps you to go through the process to see whether has there any change occur when you install this particular software or hardware, and then try to perform some tasks that you can use to be able to solve it. So it's like a wizard that takes you through the process. And normally, what this does is that it communicates with the server, the server of the software or the hardware, and then try to see if it has an update for that particular software that you are trying to run. Usually, this happens if you installed a new operating a new drivers, maybe for a particular software or a particular hardware. So the automated troubleshooter will see that the software that you are trying to install is old. So there is a new version of it that you need to install. So in that case, it communicates with the server and then gives you the access to be able to get the updated software. And then once you download and then update it, then that particular problem will be solved. Another problem that your automated software can help you resolve is software compatibility issues. So sometimes you realize that you have a software. So maybe you are trying to do an update. I've ever encountered this before. I was trying to install a particular software. Then once I was installing it, the automated software troubleshooter just realized that the software that I'm trying to install is an older version of whatever I have. So it tells me that if I continue, there will be some system files that will not work. Then right away, I stopped and then used the troubleshooter to go to the software developer site, and then I got the updated or the updated software or the version, and then I've installed. So sometimes when you are installing software, it could be that your software will not be compatible with the version that you have. So if that's the case, Windows provides you with a troubleshooter that can help you select and test compatibility even before you try to install the software. Those of you who are using Mac OS, this moves the incompatible software to a restricted folder and prevent the application from opening. So for the Mac OS guys, all that you can do is that it tries to prevent the system from not working. But with the Windows, it helps you, it performs that. And then if there's a current version of the software that you have, it can help you to be able to fix that particular problem. So this is how the automated troubleshooter looks like. So you could see that once you try to install a particular software, it's not good. These are some of the issues that you can have. So you could see that you are running a program. So program made for previous version of the software. So this means that this software that you are trying to install will have some issue with the various, the previous version. Or if it is a hardware, you need to configure, use a printer. So these are some of the possible problems, and then how you can be able to solve them. Now, some of the problems that you can have with your software is that there is some malware that is having, or your problem is with a malware. So some of this malware can prevent your system from working properly. So if it is the case that you detected that this solution or whatever problem I'm having with my software will be as a result of malware, then the best thing for you to do is to remove this malware. And you can remove this malware by using an antivirus or an anti-spy software. So all that this antivirus does is that it scans your computer system thoroughly to see whether has any of these viruses, worms, and other types of malware attached themselves to any of the files that you have. If it is, then it's going to locate it and then try to remove them for you. So the antivirus usually locate virus by comparing the characteristics of the file that you have to the one that is listed in each database, something we refer to as the virus definition. So there are some known viruses. So when you run your software, your antivirus software, it tries to see whether are there any of the known viruses that are listed in the antivirus definition. So the antivirus software has some definition or have a list of viruses in its database. So it compares it to see if there is any, then it will flag it. Once it flags it, then if your antivirus is a current and updated one, it will try to delete them from your system. So the same thing that the antivirus is doing, the anti-spy software is also doing. So, last week or last 2 weeks, we spoke about this spy software that these are software that people write and then put on your computers or even on the internet just to spy on you. So some of them, they just go installed and then they pick the keystrokes that you have on your keyboard and then send them to whoever implanted them on the computer systems. So if you don't want these spywares to be on your system, then you need to have anti-spy software that you are going to install on your computer system. So most of the popular OS we have, which is Windows and Mac OS, all of them come with this antivirus software that you can use to be able to scan your computer system. So with Windows, it is known as the Windows Defender. And then with Mac OS, it's called the X Protect. So these are the viruses or the antivirus that comes with it that can help you. But if you don't want to use the ones that comes with the operating system, then you can install a third-party antivirus, which mostly are available that you can just go download and then install and then use on your system. So sometimes when you run this, your antivirus or anti-spy, usually how they do is that they scan your system. So any suspicious file that they find in your system, they move them into a place called quarantine, or they quarantine them, meaning that they move them to a separate place that will not have any impact or that cannot have any effect or have an interaction with the files that you have on your computer systems. So quarantine files cannot run, so they cannot harm your computer systems. So if you run some of this, your anti-spy or antivirus, sometimes you see that when they run, they list some of them and then they ask you, what action do you want? Sometimes they give some option, delete or move to quarantine. So once you move to quarantine, then that means that your computer system is saved. So once they are there, they cannot run. Just like the way when COVID was around, when people come in and they realize that they have COVID, they quarantine them. Once they quarantine them, then they stop the spread of the virus. So the same thing also happened within our computer system. Sometimes you can troubleshoot using the save mode. So a save mode is just a troubleshooting option for operating systems. So sometimes when you have your operating system not running, then you are going to use the save mode to be able to test to see whether will some of the basic services and functionality of your computer system work. And then sometimes you can troubleshoot your operating system in a safe mode. So we have a system restore feature of our operating system. So this system restore is just there so that in case your system fails, it can use the information that is stored, or the state of your computer system will be stored in the system restore file. So maybe at the time that I'm running my system, my update has been done up to a certain stage. So that stage will be stored in the system restore. So you can use the system restore to do any changes that you've made to your computer system without even affecting the data that you have. So what some people do is that they keep track or they do a backup of their system restore. So let's say I've done a backup of my system restore today, and then tomorrow I've installed a software, and that software that I've installed is trying to interfere with my system. If that is the case, then I can just go into my system restore and then restore my system back to the state that it was before I have installed my new app that is trying to affect my system. If that happens, then it's going to do away with the new application system that you've done or the new software that you've installed, and then restore the system back to the state that it was before you have installed that software. So all that we done was troubleshooting your hardware, your software. So sometimes you could see that the problem might not be coming from your hardware, software, but it will be coming from the hardware. So there are some symptoms of internal hardware troubleshoot that you should know. One of them is beeps during post. That is when you are booting your system. When you hear these beeps, so an error that occurred during the post usually means that one of the critical system component is damaged or fails, and then it needs to be replaced. So if that is the case, then you start your system in safe mode to be able to troubleshoot that particular problem. So sometimes you start your system and then you hear ping or you hear some sound in your system. When that happens, then go into your safe mode, start the system in safe mode, and then try to troubleshoot the system from there. Sometimes you hear your hard drive makes unusual sounds. You on your system and then you see that the hard drive is making some unusual sound. So if that happens, it could be that your system, your hard drives will fail. So you need to be able to solve that problem. So once you normally hear some sound in your hard drives, quickly back up your data and then use a disk checking utility to scan the drive for error. And then if you realize that your drive is having some error, then you need to replace that particular hard drive. If not, that hard drive will soon crash and then your system will not work. Sometimes you see a display screen is blank. Your display screen is blank or garbled or includes some blank areas. So if that happens, the possible cause is that your video card is damaged. And usually this damaged video card can be as a result of power surges. When there's so much spike in your electricity as we are having nowadays, that there's a lot of doomsday happening, that can affect your video card. So if that happens, then the best thing for you to do is to replace your video card. Or better still, try to attach your computer system to a different monitor and see. If you attach to a different monitor and the problem solved, then that means that there is a problem with your display screen. But if it is still there, then that means that the VGA of your system is not working. So you need to replace the video card. Sometimes there's frequent software crashes, unusual messages, or deteriorating performance of your system. So if that happens, then know that the problem will be coming from your memory, your RAM. So you can use the task manager to check how much memory you have in your system. And then if you don't have enough memory, then you need to replace that one or you need to add up to it. So sometimes insufficient memory can cause your frequent crashes. And these crashes all mostly happen because your software doesn't have enough space or enough memory to be able to run. So if that's the case, quickly get enough memory and then installed, and then you'll be fine. Sometimes your computer doesn't start at all. If your computer doesn't start even after completing the post, or shortly after the post test, if your computer goes down, then that means that you have a problem with your power supply, or there's a problem with the processor or the motherboard. So you need to check all of these things. If you detect that it is a processor, then replace it. If it is the motherboard, then you have to replace them altogether. So all of these troubleshooting methods that you use together with your software will also be applicable to your hardware. So you can use the troubleshooter, you can use the safe mode, you can use the knowledge-based articles or the online forums. All of these can also be applicable to your hardware or the software issue that you might encounter with your system. Then sometimes we need to troubleshoot our firmware. So usually firmware, they are software that permanently reside on your chip. They cannot be controlled or they cannot be removed by the user. It is done from the manufacturer side. So in this case, what happens if there's a problem with them? So all that you need to do if you have a firmware issue is to just go and then update it, because there can be some bugs that will be affecting your firmware. So software update or firmware update will be able to solve some of these problems that you may have with your system. So you update the firmware for computer or your device by connecting to the internet and then selecting the option for updating your firmware. So you go to the manufacturer, the site, and then you select update firmware. Once you select the update firmware, it go and then update the firmware, and then the problem that you are having will be gone. Sometimes too, the problems you are having with your system might not be even a hardware issue. It could just be your cables. Sometimes your cables are not properly installed. So if your computer doesn't start or start and stops suddenly, then it could be that there's a problem with your power cord. Sometimes there's a cut in your power cord. So you need to check your power cord to see whether is everything working properly. If the display screen is blank on your desktop, then you make sure that the cable from your desktop is securely fixed or attached to the system unit. Then if you are using a mobile computer, make sure that you have enough battery. So some people, there was somebody who once brought a machine, it's a laptop, and the person said the laptop is not working, and not knowing it's the battery that has drained. The person used the laptop and forgot to charge. So the person didn't know that it is the battery that has run down. So sometimes you need to check all those things first before you go to a PC specialist to be able to repair your computers for you. So with this knowledge, I think that if we have any issues with our system, we can be able to troubleshoot them ourselves. So sometimes your peripherals. So peripherals are any devices that you connect to the system. So your keyboard, your mouse, your printer, anything that you attach to the system is a peripheral. So one thing that you need to check is to see whether the cables and the connections are properly done. So you need to check them and see whether are they properly done before you go. Another one is compatibility. Maybe the device that you're trying to connect, it is not compatible with the current version of your operating system. So you have to check and see whether this device that you are connecting, does it work with Windows 11, Windows 10? If that's what you have, check. If it is not compatible, it will not run. Then sometimes the drivers, your operating system needs a compatible drivers to work with your peripheral devices. So if your drivers are not up to date or they are not compatible with the operating system, it will not work. So if that's the case, then you have to go to the manufacturer's website, select the operating system that you are running, and then they will give you the appropriate drivers that you can install so that your peripheral devices can work. Sometimes it's the firmware that comes with your peripheral. Maybe it needs updating. So if that's the case, then you need to go and then update them before you install on your computer system. So that ends our discussion for troubleshooting. So these are some likely causes that your system will have. And then if they do happen, these are the possible ways that you can go through to be able to solve them. Any question? Yes, sir. Go ahead, Steven.
All right. So please, good afternoon and good afternoon, class. So please, with the compactable, for
With
instance,
the what?
someone is the one that is it the compactable.
Compatible.
With the compactable. So
Yeah.
in case someone is using Techno 40 Pro, and then is able to connect to a computer, and then the same different person is using the same phone, trying to connect to a computer, but it's not connecting. So I want to know the reason why.
So which other phone is the person using?
So they are all using the same Techno Pro Max.
Okay.
But the other one was able to connect to the computer, but the other one wasn't able to connect.
So the one that is not able to connect, either the person is having an issue with the firmware, which he needs to update. So in this case, the person needs to update his operating system on his
Mobile phone.
mobile phone. Because if you all have the same mobile phone, the same Techno 40 Pro, and then I'm able to connect and you are not able to connect, then it could be that you need to update your operating system, your system. You need to update it so that it will be up to date. Once you do that, you'll be able to connect.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
All right. So I think next week is our last class. And that one we have him face-to-face next week. So as I said, I'll come next week for us to have practical. So that means that you should come with your laptops so that we will look at some basic, I think Word, Excel, and then PowerPoint database, and then maybe some troubleshooting guidelines that you can go through. So next week, I'll see you guys in Accra, and then it will just be a practical session. So come along with your laptops. I'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye.
All right, sir. Thank you for your time, sir. We do appreciate it.